Hello everyone. The topic of this video is variables, expressions and statements. Whenever you learn a programming language, there is a tradition of learning to write your first program, which is usually called the Hello World program. The task in this case is to print the text Hello World onto the screen. Okay, so it is done differently in different programming languages. So in Python, the way to write this program is just a one line of code. So you use the print function. Don't worry about what functions are. You'll be learning soon. So you write this name of the function print and within parenthesis. So and again within double quotes, you write the text hello world. Okay. And now if I run this, let me just connect it. Now if I run this, so you can see that this is printing hello world onto the screen. Okay. So next let us look at what are values inside a program. Okay. A value is a chunk of data. It is a basic thing that a program works with. Okay. For example, here to this print function, I'm giving this value hello world. I'm asking the print function that please display this particular value onto the screen. So hello world is a value. Similarly, other types of values can be 1 or 2, or just like I said, hello world also can be a value. So you can see that this hello world is enclosed by single quotes here and enclosed by double quotes here. Okay. So whenever you see a chunk of text which is enclosed either by single quotes or double quotes, that is called as a string in Python. Okay. So what are strings? Strings are basically strings of text or strings of characters. Okay. So any type of text that you want to represent or uh, save within your program, so you will use a string for that. Now let us look at types. So values in Python are of different types. For example, 1 is a number and hello world is a string. So why do we need these types? So you must know that in a computer, all the data is represented as zeros and ones. Okay. So when Python is reading some data from the memory, so everything will look as a series of zeros and ones. But these zeros and ones may actually be referring to different types of data. For example, one series of zeros and ones could be representing an image. Another could be representing a piece of audio, whereas something else could be representing a piece of text. So how does it know that it needs to interpret this series of zeros and ones as an image or audio or as text? That it does using the type of the data. So Python also stores what is the type of a value, and based on that it like decides how it should actually interpret that piece of data. Okay. So within Python there is this function called as type, type, and to that you can pass any value and Python will tell you what is the type. So if I pass 1 to type, it is telling me that it is of type int or integer. Okay. So it is an integer type. Similarly, if I pass this text hello world and enclosed by single quotes, so the type of this is str or string type. And similarly, if I pass 3.2, a decimal number, so this was an integer number whereas this is a decimal number. So decimal numbers within programming languages are called as floats or floating point numbers. And so here I have again a number, but now I'm enclosing it within single quotes. So this makes it a string again. If I run this, you can see that it is a string. string type. So strings in Python can be represented in two ways. Either you can use single quotes or double quotes. Okay. So another way that I could do this is, suppose this 23, if I enclose it in double quotes, this is also a string. If I look at its type, it is also a string. Okay. So a string is basically a string of characters or a string of letters or numbers or other special characters. When you write a series of these characters, and at the beginning and at the end, if you put either single quotes or double quotes, so that becomes a piece of text which Python interprets as literal text. Okay. So for example, here this one Python interprets actually as an integer. So you can add two integers and you can subtract one integer from another integer, but you cannot actually add two pieces of letters, right? The letters are just text. The operations of addition, subtraction, etc. Are not meaningful on letters or special characters, whereas they are meaningful on integers. So here Python interprets this to be an integer, whereas this it interprets to be a piece of text. Okay, so that is the difference. Now let us look at the next topic, which is variables. A variable is a name that refers to a value, and an assignment statement creates new variables and gives them values. Okay, so what do we mean? So in programs, you have data and you subject this data to a series of transformations. Okay. So now, whenever you're dealing with this data or dealing with these values inside your program, at each and every place you do not directly want to use or put those values. What do I mean? So for example, if you have a very long number, okay, number which is of some 20 or 30 digits, or let us say you have a piece of text which has like 500 or 600 characters. Okay, so now let us take the example of the text. So within this 500 character piece of text, you want to search whether a particular word is present or not, and you want to do this same search maybe 5-10 times within a single program. Okay, so each time you're doing this search, you don't actually want to write the whole piece of text at each and every place 10 times. Okay, that will be very difficult and cumbersome. What you want to do is, within your program, at one place you actually define that this is my piece of text and give it a particular name, and in the rest of the program, whenever you're coming back to use that piece of text again, you just use the name that you have given it instead of actually using that text directly. That is simpler, right? So that is the idea of a variable. So just to make it more concrete, so for example, if I this is an example of an assignment statement. So what I'm doing here is, I have this string. Now we are going to do something new. This is a piece of text. I've enclosed it in single quotes. So this has become a string. Okay. So now if I want to do a series of transformations on this string, I don't want to be repeatedly writing this, copying and pasting this piece of text again and again. So instead what I'm doing is, I'm creating a variable with the name message. Okay, and I'm saying message equals, and I'm giving this string. So what this does is, this creates this new variable message and assigns this value of this string to this variable. So that is why this is called an assignment statement. Similarly, in this example, here I'm creating a variable called n and I'm giving it the value 23. And similarly here I'm creating the variable pi. So for example, in your program, you may be in your mathematical formulas, you may be using the value of pi. All right. So you may be using within the same program, for example, you're using 100 times this value of pi. So each time you don't actually want to remember and write this number 3.1417. Or for example, yeah, you have written a program which is using this value of pi. Later, what you realize is you actually need greater precision. So earlier you only defined pi as 3.14, but now you realize, oh no, I need more decimal points of precision. So you also added 3.1417. Now, for example, if you are directly using this value all throughout your program, you would have had to go to each and every place and change that value from 3.14 to 3.1417. Whereas if I define pi equals 3.1417 and use the name pi wherever I would have had to use this value, now when I want to actually update it, I just have to update it at this one place and it gets updated everywhere else. So is that clear? So the type of the variable is the type of the value that it refers to. So if I want to know the type of message, because message is a string, okay, I have to run this. So because message is a string, so the type of message is also str. So the type of n, because n refers to a value that is an integer, so this also will be an int. And I would expect that the type of pi, because it is a decimal number, it should be a float. Okay. Now let us move on to identifiers. So what are identifiers? So an identifier is a name used to identify a Python object. That object can be either a variable, a module, a function object, or a class. Okay. So these other, so Python has lots of different types of objects. So these modules, functions, objects, and classes, we'll look at them later. Right now we have already looked at variables. Okay. So whenever you're naming any kind of object within Python, so that name is in general called an identifier. Okay, how you identify that particular object, you identify it using your name. Okay, so now there are certain rules for identifiers, or you can consider them as rules for naming. Okay, so identifiers cannot be keywords. Okay, so I'll tell you what keywords are. So identifiers can contain A to Z small letters, capital A to Z, 0 to 9, or the underscore character. Okay, so this underscore character you will find on your keyboard. So usually it is present if you have a top row of numbers. So right next to 0, on the right of 0, you'll actually find this underscore key. You have to press shift and press that key. The next rule is that identifiers cannot start with a number, and identifiers cannot contain special symbols, and identifiers are case sensitive. So this var underscore 1 with a small v is different from var underscore 1 with a capital V. Okay. So these are the rules. Next, what are keywords? So keywords are reserved words in Python. Keywords can only be used for specific purposes in Python which are fixed. Okay. So for example, this is how you can get a list of all the keywords in Python. So these are the keywords. So false is a keyword, none is a keyword. So you cannot actually use these keywords to define as your variable names or any kind of names that you're giving to objects inside your Python program. For that purpose, you cannot actually use these keywords. So and is a keyword, as is a keyword, assert, break. So all these are keywords within Python. Next, this is just I'm illustrating certain rules. So x1 is a valid identifier, or it is a valid name. So if I run this, I won't have any problem. Whereas here there is a particular rule that identifiers cannot start with a number. So this is an invalid identifier. So you can see syntax error, invalid syntax, and Python is pointing to this. Okay, so what is the invalid thing here is that this identifier or this name is actually an invalid name because it is starting with a number. Okay, next is so again I'm using this, just showing you the use of this underscore here. So this is a valid identifier, there is no error or any such problem. So I just want to give you a few pointers, some variable naming best practices. So start your variable names with lowercase, okay? So uppercase, so by convention, so even though it is not a rule, Python rule to start variable names with lowercase, but within the Python programming language community, so the programmers have some general conventions, okay? So as a Python programmer, as you're entering this community, you are also supposed to follow these conventions, because you will be sharing your Python code with other Python programmers, and you will be also using other Python programmers code. So following these conventions helps ease this communication of code with others, okay? So in general, variable names start with lowercase. So you can also start names with uppercase, but those are usually reserved for names of classes and other kinds of entities. And for variable names, we only start with lowercase. Okay? And use underscores for readability. Okay. So for example, if you have a variable called total score within your Python program, so you can write it either as total underscore score, or you can also write it as total score. Okay. So I encourage you to use these underscores, because this acts like a space and it makes the variable names more readable. Okay, whereas this, if you have another more word here, total score in match, so this becomes like an unreadable mess. So I would encourage you to instead use underscores in this way. All right. Uh, So, and I encourage you to use full names like this, total score, instead of short forms such as TS. Because when you're giving your code to someone else, to your colleague, or to someone else who is collaborating with you, if you these names make a huge difference in how quickly you can actually understand a program. What this when I read this word total score, I immediately know, okay, this is referring to the score. Whereas when I read TS, it is not clear what what is this variable actually referring to. What am I using it for within my program? Okay. Next, let us look at operators and operands. Okay. So operators are special symbols used to represent operations such as addition or multiplications. Okay. The values that an operator is applied to are called operands. So plus, minus, percentage, slash, etc. are a few operators in Python. So if I say 2 plus 3, so plus is the addition operator, and 2 and 3 are operands, because on this I am doing this addition operation. So if I run this, you can see that the value is 5. Similarly, minus and slash, these are also operators. Next, let us look at expressions and statements. So an expression is a combination of values, variables, and operators. Okay. So here I had 2 plus 3. Suppose if I say x equals 2 and y equals 3, I can also have x plus y. So again, you can see this is 5, or x plus 2 times y. Now this has become 8, because 2 plus twice of 3 is 6. So x plus 2 times y, this is a combination of values, variables, and operators, right? So x and y and 2, these are all values, and star is the multiplication operator, plus is the addition operator. So x plus 2 times y, 2 star y. So this is an expression. A value or a variable all by itself is also considered an expression. Okay, so x by itself is also an expression. 2 is also an expression, y is also an expression, and when I combine these two variables and this one value using operators, this whole thing is also an expression. Okay, the following are legal expressions: 23x and x plus 23. Okay. Next, what is a statement? So a statement is a unit of code that the Python interpreter can execute. Okay. What this means is, you can actually run that piece of code or that unit of code as a Python program, and it will give you a meaningful output. For example, we had looked at the assignment statement earlier. So here, this is an assignment statement, x equals 2. So this is a Python, this is a unit of Python code which can be executed, and which will, the result of that will be that new variable is created with the name of x, and it is assigned this value 2. That is the assignment statement. So technically an expression is also a statement. So here when I said 2 plus 3, this is an expression, but this is also a unit of Python code which when executed, it gave us the value 5, right? So this, so expressions are also statements, but what is the difference? An expression has a value, but a statement does not. This is the crucial difference. Okay. So when I say x equals 2, so this whole statement as such does not have any value. What is the value of x equals 2? It does not have any value. But when I run it, it has some effect. Okay. It will run and it will have some effect. The effect is that a new variable is created and a value is assigned to it. But this as such does not have any value. Whereas 2 plus 3 has an obvious value of 5, or x plus 2 into y, it has the obvious value of 8. But print x plus 2 into y, this is a statement. Now what this does is this has an effect. This prints the value of 8 onto the screen. But if I say what is the value of print x plus 2 into y, it does not have any value. So that is the crucial difference between expressions and statements. An expression has a value, but a statement does not. Okay. So that's it for this video. We covered some introductory topics of variables, expressions, and statements. Thank you.